Nikon sales have lagged behind Canon and Sony of late, but it started fighting back with the impressive Z9 a couple of years ago. Then, to appeal to an audience that couldn't pay for that flagship, it released the Z8 with the same sensor and nearly the same specs for $1,700 less. Like the Z9, the Z8 can do everything from sports to wildlife to scenic photography. That's thanks to the speed and high resolution offered by the 45 megapixel stacked sensor with no mechanical shutter. Video is strong too, with internal 8K RAW capture at up to 60 frames per second. Its main rival is Sony's A1, which costs a whopping $2,200 more. To find out how the Z8 stacks up, I rented one and shot with it around Vancouver, Canada. Design-wise, the Z8 is very much like the Z9, but less. It's still not dainty at 910 grams compared to 737 grams for the A1. Photographers who like a substantial camera may prefer that, but the extra weight isn't ideal for travel. Nikon users will enjoy the control layout that's largely similar to past models, but others may find it a bit awkward at first. Still, it has a nice big grip and all the controls you'd expect, including a joystick, D-pad style menu control, separate camera and video settings, and front and rear control dials. On top is a display that shows key settings, something I've come to appreciate and a feature that's missing on the A1. The menu system isn't the easiest to grok at first, but it's okay once you get used to it. Unfortunately, the Z8 lacks a fully articulating display. Rather, it just tilts up and down and left-right. That's too bad because it could be a powerful vlogging camera, and a flip-out display is also easier for solo shooters. The $3.69 million electronic viewfinder is a bit low rent for a camera in this price range, especially compared to the Sony A1's $9.4 million display. Other key features include UHS 2 and CF Express B memory card slots, a full-sized HDMI port for external capture, and 2 separate USB-C ports for power delivery and data. The Z8 is unbelievably quick for a 45 megapixel camera thanks to the stacked sensor and electronic-only shutter. It can grab up to 20 frames per second in RAW mode or 30 frames per second for JPEGs, a touch slower than the A1's 30 frame per second RAW capability. You can grab 40 uncompressed RAW frames before the buffer fills, but many more compressed RAW images. The hybrid phase detect autofocus is Nikon's best to date due to the upgraded image processor, stacked sensor, and huge number of AF tracking points. It offers reliable subject tracking, and the face, eye, and animal detection is fast and accurate as well. However, the AF isn't quite as dependable as Sony's A1 when shooting at the highest speeds. There's no mechanical shutter, but the Z8 sensor is fast enough that rolling shutter isn't an issue, even on fast-moving objects like airplane propellers. The 5-axis in-body stabilization reduces shake by 6 stops, enough to get sharp shots down to a quarter second or so. That's superior to the A1, but falls short of the EOS R5's 8 stops. With an identical sensor to the Z9, image quality on the Z8 is of course the same. With 45.7 megapixels on tap, it delivers sharp images on par with the 50 megapixel A1, second only to Sony's 60 megapixel A7 R5. Dynamic range is also outstanding, arguably a touch better than the A1, aided in part by the 14-bit RAW images. JPEG images look bright and punchy straight out of the camera, with best results from the natural light auto white balance setting. Colors are accurate, though skin tones aren't quite as warm as with Canon's R3 or R5. The Z8 performs reasonably well in low light too. Grain is well controlled up to about ISO 6400, and shots are usable at ISO 12800. Beyond that, noise can become distracting. That lines up with Canon's R5, but Sony's A1 performs a bit better in dim lighting. The Z8's video specs are pretty mind-blowing and exceed the A1's capabilities. You can shoot RAW video at up to 8K 60p in Nikon's 12-bit NRAW, or 8K 30p with 12-bit ProRes RAW HQ, both internally to CF Express cards. It also captures 4K video oversampled from the full width of the sensor at up to 60p, and full width 4K up to 120p, again, all in RAW. As with photos, video autofocus is fast and reliable while doing a good job tracking subjects, faces, and animals. It can handle challenging situations like subjects moving toward the camera, though again, not quite as good as the A1. 8K and 4K oversampled video is extremely sharp. Colors are accurate, but again, skin tones aren't quite as pretty as on Canon's latest models. Dynamic range is top-notch, particularly in the 400 to 800 ISO range in ProRes mode, making it easy to adjust shadows and highlights in post. If you love shooting ProRes footage, be sure to get some high-capacity CF Express cards because the file sizes can get huge. The one area where the Z9 bests the Z8 in video is with heating, as the Z9's larger body allows for 125 minutes of 8K 60p recording compared to 90 for the Z8. This is a problem that will impact very few shooters, however. One point to note here is that Nikon just purchased the cinema camera company Red, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects future development of mirrorless camera products. Nikon's Z8 is an extremely capable camera and points to what the company should do with its cheaper models if it wants to catch Canon and Sony. For many hybrid shooters, it's a better option than Sony's A1, particularly when it comes to video. While it does out-spec the Sony in many areas, the autofocus isn't quite as good. Shooters who require a mechanical shutter will also need to look elsewhere. Another 8K capable full-frame mirrorless camera is Canon's R5 that falls short of both models in many regards, but is cheaper at $3,200. A decision to buy this camera might be based on what system and lenses you're already into. However, if I was starting from scratch, I'd go for the Z8 over Sony's A1 as it offers a lot more for the money. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. And for more on technology, check out Engadget.com.